many ways I was extremely lucky because so many of my friends died in racing accidents. And I kept having terrible accidents, but kept surviving. So don't ask me why. I mean, I was just got to the top of the tree in 1968, and I was driving for John Wyer in the GT40 Fords, which is the featured mark today. The car's here, the actual car's here. And because of that, I signed for the Cooper Formula One company in Grand Prix Formula One. So now I've got two fantastic drives, you know. One of them is the best in the world, the GT40. The Cooper wasn't quite the best in the world, but still. So we win a couple of races with the GT40. Everything looks fine, and Colin Chapman, the head of Lotus, the top team at that time, wanted me to sign for him for Formula One, single-seater. And we'd won the 1,000-kilometre race at Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium, the most dangerous and fastest racetrack in the world. And about 4 weeks later, we went back with the Formula One car. And on about the sixth lap, I came into a corner going about 160, put the brakes on and nothing happened. So I tried to spin it, you know, because it's better to go backwards than forwards, and it wouldn't turn. The steering, so I had no steering and no brakes, and the car hit the barrier and rolled over it. And as it rolled over, this arm got caught between the car and the barrier, and I landed right in a corner worker's post, you know, where the corner workers were, and I hit a parked car. And that car went on top of another car, 3 of my wheels came off, and it all caught fire. So anyway, when this arm was almost torn off, and when they got me on the operating table later that day at the University of Liège Teaching Hospital, Professor Orban, who was the head of surgery, had been a Winston Churchill aide during the war. And he looked down at me and he said, "Monsieur Redman, it may not be possible to save the arm." And I smiled. I said, "Thank you, Professor." And he said, "Why are you smiling?" I said, "Because I'm here." So I had a lot of drama with my arm for months and months, but you know, everything carried on. And in 1969, I drove for Porsche. And at that time, Porsche had an opportunity to win the World Manufacturers' Championship for the first time ever because of a change in the rules, which effectively banned the American Fords with their massive engines, you know. And so I was one of 10 drivers in the Porsche team, and Joe Siffert, my great co-driver from Switzerland, we won all the races pretty well and won the championship for Porsche. And the next year the team was run by John Wyer, so now John Wyer, who I'd driven for in the GT40, is now running the official Porsche team. So we did that, we won the championship again, and at the end of the year I retired because I thought I was going to be killed. All my friends were being killed. And I said to my wife, we're going. I'd been offered a job in Johannesburg, and I said, we're going. And in November of 1970, we went to Johannesburg. And then I hated, when I was actually working there, the apartheid and everything about it. And I came back again, you know, in March with no drive. I did a one-off drive for John Wyer in a Porsche 908 in the Targa Florio. The Targa Florio, 44 miles to one circuit with 800 turns. I'd won it the year before with Joe Siffert in a 908-3 for John Wyer. The driver who took my place in the team, Derek Bell, he'd never done the Targa. So John rang me and he said, "Would you like to do the Targa?" I thought this is a great opportunity to get back into big-time racing. Anyway, my co-driver had crashed the car the night before the race. I started the race, and right from the start, the handling was odd. And I got 22 miles round the track, around the 44-mile track, turned for a corner and the steering broke. And I hit a concrete post in the fuel tank, and it exploded. And I was on fire from head to foot. And of course, nobody there. You know, you're out in the wilds of Sicily. And eventually, a helicopter came 45 minutes later before I had any medical attention. I was blind, I couldn't see, I was badly burnt, and so another big setback. But at the end of that year, we did a one-off race at Imola in Italy in a BRM Can-Am car, and it was a very good car in the rain. It was a wet race, and I managed to lap the field. And Ferrari were there. There was a Ferrari in the field, and Ferrari came to me and they said, "Brian, what are you doing next year?" So for 2 years, I drove for Ferrari and won the World Championship again with them. Well, after the endurance racing in both America and Europe, which I really became best known for, I raced for Chaparral in America in a thing called Formula 5000. This was Jim Hall, a legendary American designer. And I had 4 fantastic years. in Formula 5000, open wheel, single seater with a 500 horse Chevy in the back. And we managed to win the championship 3 times with a certain Mr. Andretti finishing second for 2 years and Alain second the third year, and managing to win the Long Beach Grand Prix, the first one, in September of 1975. And so that was a great grip for me. That was the best series. I mean, the team was fantastic. There were just 4 guys. Franz Weiss, who built the engines and tested the car. I could have taken the car at any race and not practiced in it and just made a couple of small changes. He liked a bit more push than I did. I liked a bit more oversteer. And in that time, when the Chevrolet racing engine was very unreliable, Franz Weiss built the engines at Chaparral, and we had 1 engine failure in 4 years. 1 engine failure. We had 1 suspension failure. But at the end of '76, the SCCA, the Sports Car Club of America, changed the rules because the race car promoters wanted Can-Am, the name Can-Am. It had been a big name in the late '60s when they had bigger crowds for the races. So the SCCA said, we want you to put bodywork on your open wheel single seater, and we're going to call it Can-Am. So we arrived for the first race of the new season in Sandravik, Canada in May, I think it was. And I go out in the car's very good. And I come in the pits, Jim Hall said, how is it? I said, it's good. He said, what do you want? What do you want to do to the car? I didn't actually want anything, but it was oversteering a bit too much. So I had a bit too much downforce on the front. So I said, take 1/4 of an inch off the front wing, that much. And on the next lap, as I went round at 170 miles an hour, it took off, went straight in the air. It came down upside down, and that broke my neck, C1, smashed this shoulder, split my breastbone, broke my ribs, the roll bar broke, and I went down on the road with my head here. And fortunately, as it came to a halt, it rolled off the track onto its wheels, and my heart had stopped, but the track doctor was a heart specialist. He got my heart going. The ambulance blew a tyre on the way to hospital, and there's a photograph. When my wife arrived from England the next day, there was a photograph on the front page of the Montreal paper, and it showed the ambulance with the doors open, me in the back not looking too good, and 2 guys working on the wheel. And the headline was, Redman est mort, Redman is dead.